Drawing from imagination, legends, YouTube goats, and industry veterans have all been asked the same question: what is the biggest mistake students make when practicing art? The answers may surprise you.
The mistake I see the most often in students' work is not drawing the forms correctly and not drawing through their forms. So they don't plan out the vehicle, they don't plan out the work. They just start drawing a bumper, they connect it to something that isn't real. They're not thinking about the forms and how they're actually connected together.
Probably thinking that their work is done before trying more things, you know? Like in a lineup or something, like if someone's showing me their first iteration, they do it and they say, how is this? And it's already clean. And if you clean it, I know you're not gonna take my notes and change the whole thing. I know in your head, you've cleaned it and you don't wanna change it. So it's like keeping things loose in a way that you can always improve it and come back to it if you want to, or like being open to that change and to the criticism and feedback.
Mistakes I will see in student work, they think it's technical. Oh, the anatomy, the line quality, the details. I mean, true, yes, those are valuable and they do make a difference, but it's not the mistake that I'm looking for. The mistake is, what's the first step you took to produce that thing? Which means, what was the first thing you were thinking about? What was your mind doing, right? Were you maybe approaching it with the mentality that wasn't necessarily appropriate, that then set up all these potential cascading mistakes? So that first step is important, and to be able to have the proper mentality and the mindset, well, we talked about people is one way, proper education is another thing, but trial and error, I think, is a big factor. You gotta try a bunch of different stuff, fail it, learn from it, and then look for the ways of being able to set yourself up so you can also see the mistakes about to happen, and you're able to then predict that. And so you'll never really, that's not to say you won't ever make a mistake, but you'll know how to roll with those punches, right? So when I see the work on a portfolio or in a sketchbook, usually if I'm seeing a mistake of a technical, it's not me trying to ask them or trying to show them how to fix it. The question is, what were you trying to do? And what were you thinking? And if they say, I don't know what I was doing, and I was just trying to hope for the best, well, of course you're gonna make a mistake at that point. So then the lesson learned is about like, okay, well, how do you set yourself up with the proper mentality? What do you ask as a question? Do you even give yourself a chance to think about it? You look at a photograph of a reference and start drawing away? Don't do that. Just sit there for 5 minutes looking at it and process it in your mind first. What am I looking at? How do I feel about it? What am I even seeing in my head? And then start to visualize on the page. Immediate reaction or trying to be urgent and trying to be fast because you want to get things done. Again, that's the mentality that you're trying to rush through things. You're going to make a mistake. So, patience, right?
Yeah, so it's like not having an intention is sort of a mistake before you can even
Absolutely.
make a mistake.
And I'm not saying you have to have the answer, but having a clear sense of a direction. The goal is still obscure. You don't know what it's supposed to look like, but you can understand the steps you can take to go there. But to learn those steps, of course, is the education, is the people, is the trial and error, that sort of stuff. But intention has to be somewhat clear.
There's the obvious one that I always hammer on, which is like just the understanding of form and construction, but that usually is because they're trying to move too fast. Artists aren't able to fall back on that knowledge or that skill, and it's something you really need to cultivate, and you cultivate that by the boring old drawing boxes in perspective, but then drawing manipulated forms in perspective, and then rendering those forms in perspective, and then trying to break down more complicated objects in perspective, but every time do it in different angles so that you get intuitive in what you're drawing. That will make it 10 times easier to add volume and believability to what you're drawing.
Now, the process Antonio laid out is exactly how he teaches on his online learning platform and the sponsor of this video, ArtWad. Built from the ground up with this form-first philosophy in mind, ArtWad is the place to learn how to draw whatever you want. Because classes are structured and taught in a logical sequence called roadmaps that teach you everything from the very basics of perspective and form all the way to complex subjects like anatomy and even drawing dragons. Personally, I've had a hard time finding reference for specific topics like wrapping forms and spatial awareness, and these are topics that ArtWad's classes and hour-long demos have been super helpful in learning more about. But it's not just the basic forms that ArtWad can help with. Whether you want to learn to draw backgrounds, clothing folds, or even paint, ArtWad has you covered with classes not just from Antonio, but a variety of world-class instructors. So if you're serious about taking your art to the next level and want a proven method to learning art quickly, then ArtWad's got you covered because they're offering a 30% discount on their annual plan of the ArtWad membership. Check it out in the link in my description, and maybe I'll see you at Lightbox one day.
Most of the mistakes that I see are like have to do with fundamentals. So I would say like a lot of times I'll see anatomy mistakes, and this is something that I cover a lot on my channel too, where it's like, you know, the eyes being like a little bit too far apart, the spacing on the face being a little bit too far apart. But there's also like, you know, other basics like perspective. I think that's one of the topics that like people don't really pay attention to, but you know, when you're drawing environments, if your perspective is a little bit off, it can really just throw off the entire scene. So for the most part, I would say it's people try to do too much without having the fundamentals. So definitely get your fundamentals locked down first.
I guess the most overlooked fundamental would be shape design and line economy, because you know, people just end up focusing, I think, for the most part, on anatomy. They think that's the biggest thing when it comes to drawing figures. At least that's what most of my students are looking at drawing. So yeah, shape design, line economy, and really getting used to looking for overlap, opportunities for overlap in your drawings.
Proportions. Like they can draw hands nice, faces nice, but when they put it together, the proportions are kind of off. Yeah.
실수는 중요하지 않은데 자기를 믿어야 돼요. 내가 지금 계속 연습하고 있다면 나는 될 수 있다라는 믿음이 필요하고요. 그 믿음이 있으면 쉬지 않고 오랫동안 그릴 수 있어요. 그러니까 오래오래 안 쉬고 그릴 수 있는 꾸준함이 필요합니다.
The lack of understanding, particularly in painting, the lack of understanding of where the light source is in comparison to the object itself. Right? Without that, I can't invent light on anything. Okay, so I can't really. I would have no idea. I would get lost if I didn't have an idea of where that light source is and how that object is interacting with that light source, particularly the planes of the object. So I'd really focus on that.
Maybe a lot of like hesitation and their skills and not really committing to the ideas that much. Like people tend to give up super quickly and get discouraged very quickly because they tend to compare their work to people who have tens of thousands of hours already spent, and they would get discouraged, not finish or power through their work to finish it off, and kind of try and push themselves a little bit more. Because I had the same thing. I would not finish my drawings at all because I would get discouraged halfway through, and I would think, what's the point of doing it? Yeah, I think that's a big one that I've noticed. You're gonna try your best, and maybe you'll fail, and that's also really good. Like having the mindset of, oh yeah, I might fail, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. I'll just keep drawing. The next one's gonna be better. As opposed to saying, oh, I did a bad drawing. What is the point, you know?
Oh man, this is super easy. The biggest mistake, well, I won't say mistake, but the thing that all artists need to work on the most is get your values in order. Really understand values. And I say that, and you kind of ask, well, how do I understand values? Honestly, it's hard to like explain without seeing your work and giving you the direct critique. But the biggest difference between intermediate artists and professional artists is your use of value. So really pay attention when you're looking. Whenever you're using reference, turn it to black and white and just pay attention to the grayscales. Pay attention to these things because they're super weird and interesting. And when you really get the sense for it, your work will instantly improve. Like phenomenal. Like it'll fix your work so much. I would really recommend Marco Bucci to research for that. So definitely work on your values.
Well, that's the end of the video, but if you're still watching, then you're probably pretty serious about improving your art. So if you haven't already, download this free book I made for you to practice 25 crucial drawing exercises. The link's in the description, but while you're down there, if you don't mind leaving a like or a subscribe, that would be nice. And if you want to hear more from these pros, I interviewed them other questions as well, so check that out. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Peace. Thanks.